Welcome back to our final segment of Real Chats. So we've had a very productive conversation regarding Oscars So White and just the tone of the lack of diversity in the industry in general. So I have a question for you ladies. What's next? It's a loaded question. It is a loaded question, but I mean, honestly, what's next? What do we do?
I mean, I think you mentioned it earlier. It's about reforming the system of Hollywood. It's about integrating more or diversity in the Academy, the people who are members and who are voting members. There's a lot that needs to be done. But I do think that it's being done, and we're slowly seeing that change, but it's slow
It's not
process.
moving fast
It's not
enough.
moving fast enough.
Yeah.
I think there's still sectors of the industry that are only just now beginning to have this conversation. And we've had this conversation now for years, over the past year, with hashtag Oscars So White and that kind of stuff, that we might think that, oh, we're seeing something change. But to be honest, what's happening in the unions, what's happening on the mastheads, you know, all those different things need to actually do some soul searching and figure out what they're actually going to do to move the needle.
We need to start creating partnerships, like April suggested, and kind of creating this attitude. Instead of maintaining like a us versus them mentality, we need to start working together. I really love the idea of the old guard or the membership of the Academy with the new fresh, membership to start working together to create, get involved with each other's projects so that there isn't this huge disconnect going forward, so.
Absolutely. April, what about you? What do you think? What's next for us?
Well, I can tell you that the next couple of weeks until the Oscars are going to be very busy. As I mentioned earlier, we're going to have a huge counter-programming initiative on Oscars night, which is Sunday, February 28th. So you look forward to more information about that in the coming days. But I think, as a whole, we are going to continue to keep up the pressure on the Academy. The changes that they've made, most recently spearheaded by Academy President Cheryl Boone Isaacs, are a great first step. But more needs to be done, not only with respect to diversity within the Academy. So, for example, they said they want to double the number of people of color and women in the Academy, but we've only had one woman ever win Best Director, once, ever, in 80 years. So doubling that to 2 is great, but won't really speak on the problem that we have with respect to lack of inclusion. And then we need to, again, continue the focus on Hollywood itself and, what's going on in the boardrooms, when films are getting greenlit, who's telling the stories, who's being chosen to tell the story. So, for example, we saw Matt Damon and how he treated Effie Brown on Project Greenlight, and Hollywood has always been seen as sort of this liberal bastion, and yet there's still significant issues within it that need to be addressed. We can also talk about film critics, and how they need to be more inclusive and more representative, because if they don't get a movie like Straight Outta Compton because it's not from their personal experience, then perhaps their review is not going to be as positive as it could be if it were written by someone, who had a broader depth of knowledge. So we'll keep fighting forward until we no longer need to have these discussions.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And now we have a few questions from Twitter and Instagram for you ladies. The first question: why don't we invest in our own shows and culture instead of fighting for recognition by the Academy? Would anybody
We do
like to
that. I'm so sick of that question. I'm sorry. I appreciate it, but my goodness. We talked about that. What is Ava DuVernay doing? What is Spike Lee doing? What is Tyler Perry doing? And then if you want to talk about the award shows, what about the, as I mentioned, the Independent Spirit Awards, the ALMA Awards, the NAACP Image Awards, they are all there. But there's nothing that says that we cannot critique the existing, what is still considered, for better or worse, the upper echelon in the film industry, while celebrating ourselves in our own spaces.
So we're going to move on to the next question. Do you think Netflix is a solution because they're giving more diverse opportunities, like making Beasts of No Nation?
It shouldn't be the only answer.
Right.
Okay.
It should be part of the solution. It should not be the only solution.
Absolutely.
And they're an example of a company that's taking action, and other members of the industry have nothing up. Well, they have to take heed of what they're doing.
Yes.
Because Their viewership is increasing.
Yes.
They're making money off
And
like
their
direct
content's
dollars,
incredible.
not advertising dollars.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
And they're actually winning the awards.
Yes.
They're being nominated
Yeah.
for the Emmys. You know what I'm
Absolutely
saying?
right.
So they're gonna have to take notice, and believe me, they are. And they're making some shifts and adjustments, and just the same way that network TV is taking notice of what HBO and Showtime and FX are doing, because they're stealing their viewership, and their viewership is their money is based on advertising, so they need the viewership to be there and not to be seeking out these alternative options. So yeah.
I'm
Insert
Viv,
public.
Janet Hubert, called out Will and Jada for having a production company but not giving actors an opportunity to showcase or get good roles and just giving a platform for themselves. Do you think it's the job of the Tyler Perrys and the Will Smiths to produce films and risk it on black stories, or should they be able to keep their money to invest in?
Okay, so that question is kind of it's leading because it says it's a risk.
Yes, I paused on that.
Everything in Hollywood is a risk.
Yeah.
So why not? Why not take the chance? You know what I mean? If we're complaining about not being represented in this format at the Oscars, then we have to take a look within ourselves. And it's not just Will Smith and Jada, it's every person of color.
But I'll argue on the other side of that. White actors don't have to take their own money to make the projects that they want. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like,
absolutely.
you
I'm
have
not,
the backing
I'm
of
not
it.
saying that they need to specifically, but who is going to tell our stories if we're not the ones sitting?
I
I understand,
agree.
like, trying to put it out there. You're going to put it in the hands of somebody else.
And
or
if you're
gonna
gonna come up, like Jada's, kind of started this whole conversation about boycotting Oscars and everything, like, or maybe not going. Let's not say boycotting, because it's not supposed to. But if you're going to complain about it, then somebody that has the resources and has contacts in Hollywood, you should
Be
do
the
something
change
about
in
it.
we
what you
mentioned
see.
earlier, we
Yeah.
mentioned Brad Pitt,
Absolutely.
we mentioned George Clooney. Will Smith and Jada are
Yeah.
part of that community.
Absolutely,
They
Yeah.
absolutely can
I
affect
absolutely
change.
agree,
They
and
do.
I think it starts with you be the change that you want to see. You know what I'm saying? You don't wait on other people to give you the green light to
Especially
be the
when
leadership.
you have the power to do
Absolutely,
so.
and I feel like it also starts in hiring practices. Who are we hiring as producers, as writers, as directors, as cinematographers to tell our stories? If we as people of color don't trust people of color to tell our stories, how do we expect the Academy to acknowledge our work?
I just don't want the focus to be just on those production companies. I
absolutely.
just don't want,
Yeah.
like Array and Ava DuVernay's company, all that stuff. That shouldn't be the only place that we can go to find black
Exactly.
stories.
Exactly.
Robert Rodriguez shouldn't be the only one telling Latino stories.
Exactly.
It needs to have many players, many people at the table.
Yes.
Do you think a black woman would rather be referred to as an African American actress or an American actress?
How about just actress?
Yeah.
Yes.
Why
not just
I
actress?
also have to say something, because this kind of came up when we were doing our writing. People were referring to Idris Elba as African American,
Right, which is incorrect.
but he's not African.
Very much incorrect.
Exactly. So I think it's become a blanketed term, but it's not necessarily the term you're supposed to use for people that are black. I think it's just people think it's like the PC safe term, but it's not really, because
But-
it's.
But we don't describe other actors
that's what I was
as
gonna say.
white
We don't
actors.
describe-
Well, yeah, no. I'm
describe-
just talking about the title in general.
No, absolutely,
But yeah,
absolutely.
we shouldn't describe, like we were
But
just talking
going
about.
back to we don't describe Angelina Jolie as Caucasian actress.
Yeah,
Angelina
yeah.
Jolie.
It goes
Why
back
are
to what
we
I was saying before. It's
the
stating
exception?
the obvious. It's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
why does it need to be stated?
doesn't need
like,
to be
we
stated.
know who we are.
Yeah.
You guys can see it.
Exactly.
It's media creating the narrative that says this is an exception
Yeah.
and not just a part of the rule. You know what I mean?
that's-
I would love to see us get to the point where, we can just say that a person is an actor or an actress. I don't think we're there yet. And I don't think that rests on the actual performer. I think that that's how they are pigeonholed by the media, unfortunately, and by Hollywood itself. And so, I think that people are striving to get out of that role because by definition, almost, then Hollywood says, well, then you can only play black roles, whatever that means. And it should definitely be broader than that.
Okay, next question. Typically, when given opportunities in Hollywood as black actors, we are given a monumentous, powerful role as a slave or as a character that must overcome some sort of deficit, adversity, or as a major supporting role. So that goes back to our typecasting. What do you ladies think?
We need to move beyond that.
Yeah.
It's not much of an option. We're tired of these stories. We've seen these stories before. Judo Diaz has a quote where he said that we're going to have to sit through every white story before we can finally have our stories told. And I think what's happening now is we're not accepting that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing for me.
Interesting.
Like I'm ready for something fresh.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and
Absolutely.
as a writer, like we always challenge ourselves to make sure that we're telling maybe universal stories in an unconventional way, because it's like for us,
It's tired.
yeah, if we're not excited or we're not entertained and we've seen it before, what's the point in doing it?
Yeah.
I think that's why Empire is as successful as it is. It's a different take on, and I hate to say this, but it's a different take on the black family. Like it's not about them being a slave or it's being from rags to
They
riches
own a
or something.
business. He's a billionaire.
Yeah,
Let's just
every
write as a billionaire.
every story there's some type of adversity that, I mean, that's what makes a film interesting. There's some type of adversity that somebody has to overcome. But in terms of, I guess, the black story, it doesn't have to be the same
The same
Right.
the same
history.
theme. And that's
Exactly.
why that goes back to Empire. I think that's why it's so successful. It's a different take on adversity. You know, it's rich people overcoming adversity. You know, it's not like he's a slave or.
April,
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really a universal story, but we also can look at the writers of Empire. You know, it's a very diverse group of people, including people of color, and I think that makes a huge difference with respect to the stories that we're seeing, the language, the people that they're bringing in for cameos. I think all of that makes a difference, and Empire. I guess it's being billed, going back to the previous question, it's sort of billed as a black show, and yet everybody watches Empire because it's a good story. And that's the point. That's why we used Coming to America when we did the counter programming and the live tweeting last year during the Oscars, because yes, it has a majority black cast, but everybody, regardless of age or sexual orientation or race or, any type of identity or marginalization, everybody has a quotable from Coming to America, because it was that good. And that was the point of choosing that if it's a good film, it's quality work, then people will come to see it regardless of what the face looks like on the screen.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, ladies, so much for joining us today for this discussion.
I just want to say thank you to April
Yes,
for
absolutely.
Yes.
Starting this
leading the
movement.
charge
Yes.
and starting the conversation that is affecting the change. And it may take a while, but it's going. So
Yeah.
thank you
Yeah.
so much.
Thank
Kudos
you.
to
Thank you.
Yes.
My pleasure. And I could not have done it. I just created the hashtag, but there's so many people speaking about it around the world that, it couldn't have been just one person. I'm happy to be a part of it, but I'm just so humbled by the amount of support that I've received from, people like you and, just regular people inside and outside of the film industry. And, we'll keep fighting because, change is coming.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please feel free to let us know what you think, comment, #RealChats. I'm Lauren McCarroll, and we'll see you next time.